Hello, Ian. Welcome to our Kyte Perspective session.
Hi, Anita.
And welcome also to our audience. So this is the first event of a series of events where we're all diving into hospital-to-home and home care technologies based on Oracle technology, but also enhanced with third-party AI solutions. So the next 6 weeks, we have each Wednesday between 12 and 12:30, a Kyte Perspective live video, which you can follow either here on LinkedIn or on our YouTube channel. You can ask questions via the comments channel and fully engage with us while we present the various topics. And the first topic here is all about AI-driven and AI-powered patient triage for home care and hospital-in-the-home activities. And we have Ian here as our guest speaker today. So I also wanted to introduce Ian in a little bit more detail. So Ian is a fellow local Melbourne-based technology entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience and the co-founder and CEO of Q-Minutes. So Ian, what does Q-Minutes exactly do?
Q-Minutes is basically a AI management platform that allows to improve and superpower the workforce by automation, looking at automation, how AI can improve the automation and have team collaboration. And that starts with meetings. So the ability to have that accountability and follow your conversations, and then on top of that, to profit from those without having to be bogged down on the administrative side of those processes.
Awesome. So we really look forward to seeing that in a bit more detail in today's session. And the reason why we're dialing into that, and also the reason why Kyte is investing so much time into the home care, hospital-in-the-home process management, is because we feel like there's a lot of room for improvement in the industry. We also see that, triaging doctors and home care providers just need to optimize the processes. There's a real need to decrease cost and improve efficiencies, but there's also a real need across the industry to improve customer experience and patient experience as a result of it. And in today's session, where we dial into that first part of the process, the patient triage in more detail, what we've been also seeing in the intro video is that there's, patients still experience sometimes long waiting periods. There's a real need for doctors as well to focus and identify, if you have a waiting room full of people or online triage or referrals coming in, whom do you need to focus on first to make sure the most urgent patients gets prioritized? And then let's assume as a doctor, you then are in front of the patient and you have, pages of referral notes or historic patient data where, while you assess the patient's needs and requirements to determine the ideal care plan, you got to also digest all that background information. So we're really keen to see a technology which can aid doctors and triaging staff with that initial process and make sure they can focus on the right patients in a speedy amount of time. They have the right information summarized up with them, and potentially even questions prompted to them of what they may ask to identify the ideal case management and care management plan. Does this sound compelling, Ian?
Yes, it does. It sounds exciting.
Awesome. With that, I believe you've prepared a bit of a demo for that. Are you ready to showcase that?
Yes, I am. So
excellent.
Tell me when it's starting to share and I'll start talking about it.
Yeah, that's it. And for all the listeners here in the audience on this channel, it's Kyte Consulting. We are an Oracle technology partner. So our home care solution is built on Oracle technology. However, organizations like Q-Minutes, we enrich the native Oracle platforms with some really innovative third-party AI solutions. And that's something what we've worked in collaboration on with Ian since, I'd say, over the last 6 to 12 months. So Ian, over to you.
Thank you. So what you're looking at on the screen right now is our platform, which we call the AI Clinician Assistant, partnering with Kyte. A couple of important factors about this is that the data is all local. It's stored in Sydney. So in terms of privacy, we're very strong around that area, and it's all fully encrypted, and it does follow the medical protocols and languages. So the first screen you're looking at right now is the Triage platform that we've built. It's based on the ability to bring in your referrals. There's a couple of methods of how you can bring in referrals, whether we can connect to the EMR systems or we actually just either through our platform take the photo of the referral, or you can just simply upload the referral. And behind the scenes, we can process hundreds and thousands of referrals. And what we've done in this particular demo is to be able to extract the information of the referral and things that we can understand about the referrals. We look at the language of the referrals. We look at the, the terminology, the labels. This is urgent. This is 24 hours. We look at the conditions of the referrals. And based on all of that, we automatically try to identify certain key KPIs. We look at exactly what is the specialist that would be best catered for this particular referral. We try to identify the symptom of the referral. We bring back information such as the international code, the medical code of the referral where possible, and we try to anonymize a bit about the patient, such as the initials. We categorize the age group, but what's really important about this is the urgency. So based on the label, the timing, the temporal cues, and the conditions and the language of the referral, we can try to identify whether it's urgent, routine, or semi-urgent. And this is all customized based on our client. So this is the base, but then in terms of very specific needs of urgency based on conditions and specialists, that's all customized within our system. And so what we do here, for example, in this particular referral, this is all dummy data, so there's no private sensitive here. What we do is when we upload, we can say, you know what, based on the list of referrals in my inbox or triage, I'm interested in the palliative care, so that automatically fills out who's that. And I might be interested in looking at my certain age group, say a certain age group between 65, but I'm only interested in the urgency. So automatically we get the triage about the referral letters. And behind the scenes, one of the important things we do with our platform or AI platform is try to standardize the documentation. So when we bring in multiple ranges of referrals, they're different formats, what we do behind the scenes is that we can identify and build up a standard set of protocols or documentations that can be used within the hospital or the clinicians. So this is where we extracted the referral and we generate our own, or we build up the SOP, the subject, the objective, the assessment, and the particular plan. So this creates a common standard platform of information that can be transmitted between the colleagues. So
can I ask a question? So with this SOAP, so this is super powerful, right? So can I just reiterate what I'm hearing? So the system basically takes all the referral data, which could be multiple different letters from the hospital ward, from the GP historical data, and then creates that SOAP node. Is this post-triage or before triage?
This is post-triage.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So we build the SOAP, and what's very powerful with the platform is that creates the basis. But as that particular triage or that particular referral moves on to the patient interview, we keep on regularly updating that particular file note. So it follows the progression of the patient with the clinician, whether it be the nurse clinicians to the GPs, etc.
So then that would also be a really good summary. Let's assume you have aged care people out at home, a doctor does the triage and, writes that SOAP and puts the care plan together. So that SOAP could be a really good summary, let's say for any clinician or nurse, then being out in the field, visiting that aged care person in their home.
100%. And this is where we partner with Kyte also to push the information back into the field services as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
So what happens is, you come in, you visit, there's 50 patients in front of you, and you go through this particular platform and you find out the most urgent based on your specialist and your age group. So for example, here I go to palliative care. What I do is transfer that into a patient category. So I'm going to transfer myself into the patients, and our systems are designed so it's actually account aware and user aware. So every specialist, every GP will have their own account and their own set of patients. So we don't bleed the information between each other. So and here's an example where we're building up where you are. This is your inbox today. I've got 5 urgent patients or semi-urgent patients that I will open up and follow the journey of the patient. So I'm actually just going to open one example where this is the core of the AI assistant, where we have the platform. What's really important is that we always, every time there's additional information that's brought into the system about the patient, whether it could be external, whether it could be through a file note, or it could be through a recording or a piece of paper, we regularly update all the key KPIs of the patient. Information such as even knowing what their Medicare number is, what their identification, who's their GP, etc., and age group. So we keep on evolving the history of the patient, and over here we create that initial SOP, the initial file note. And so what happens now is that the clinician will probably start the interview with the patient. So, visiting the patient in the ward. There's 2 possibilities of how that interview can be done, whether if the patient is not comfortable with the conversation, we can do the post-recording. So we can upload the recording later on, or we can do the live recording. Or if the patient wasn't very comfortable with any of the recording, and the doctor or the clinician makes the notes on their piece of paper, we can actually capture that information written and bring it back into the system for the next steps, which is about all the documentation and traceability of that patient. So here we follow the different documentations from even getting to the transcript, the initial file note. But what's powerful from this point of view is that over on this side, we've developed what we call the clinician canvas. So this is for more about, if I was a psychiatrist, for example, and what I've done is I've uploaded a lot of external information about psychology. What I can do is run my AI analysis and give me back potential diagnosis about the patient and the psychology based on the memory bank of external documentation that I will provide into the system. So here you can provide external documentation, historical information about the client, or policies or care programs into the system that we can help speed and fast track the correlation. What we do, however, is we don't provide the recommendations. That's back to the clinician. What we do is we help provide the landscape, the information. So rather than having to wait for a certain delay, within a couple of minutes, you will have the landscape or what you can decide on. And then from there,
Can I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt your flow. Super fascinating. So theoretically speaking, right, if you are in palliative care, you could upload the latest research data or research findings or hospital guidelines or standard of care to help the triaging doctor, guide through the right decision making or guide the questionings to come up with the right care plan. Yeah.
100%, yes. So it's all about having that compliance next to you whilst you're going through the process flow.
Thank you.
And so that's the canvas. And also in the canvas, if you need additional information about the patient, rather than having to go back through your file notes, we can simply talk to the system. I've just met with Joan. Can you remind me what was her past medication in the last 6 months? So we have that historical information automatically. We can bring back through our modeling and AI process. We don't fabricate the data. We just look back at the data history to speed or fast track that information back into the canvas. So you will have it right in front of you without having to run around and looking at your file notes. And then the next part of the canvas, so that's all about how can we do dynamic interrogation about my patient. And then we then have all these file notes. So the idea about the file notes is that you may have the initial patient interview, but then you might want to create your own personal notes. I just met with Joanne, and I think I should recommend XYZ. I should provide a certain care plan. So what we do is, what the purpose of this is really to avoid that paperwork and to be able to use your voice as a medium to construct the necessary process and documentation. So you can end up having multiple file notes from either yourself and your colleagues, and then use that information to create the necessary documentation, whether it could be a referral letter, whether it could be a care plan, etc. And what's important about this particular technology that we've built in is that whatever file notes you bring into the system, obviously certain notes might be quite sensitive to the client. So you might want to keep that information internal. So the ability now to say, you know what, I have a lot of file notes that I've introduced to my patients, but I want to keep that internal. So we have the ability to exclude that from any further analysis, but it allows me as an internal clinician to keep a historical record of the track of that particular patient. So that's around the file notes. And then the last part, yep, sorry.
Yeah, so Ian, I have a couple of questions to those things as well. So you said you can talk to the system, so it's basically voice to text, which then prompts an AI query for the system to respond. So thinking this through practically, in our case, where we deal with home care management and clinicians and nurses on the road, in the car, so they can literally have their phone or their iPad, probably their phone up on the car, and say, click, I'm opening up my next patient's record, before they start driving. And then while they're driving, they can say, okay, dear AI Clinician Assistant, I'm going to visit John. I'm there in 20 minutes. Can you tell me everything I need to know for my next appointment?
100%. Yes, that's the whole beauty of the AI. And even to the point where, if you're visiting your patients, and then, for example, if you have to do a documentation about the surrounding space, like, there's 5 steps to the patient, they have a digicode, they have a cat, all that information can be pre-recorded into the system to then to be able to create those documentations necessary without having to have the clinician waste time or lose track of building up all those information. That can be all built through the voice. So it's about, superpowering the work of the clinician without bogging them down to the administrative process.
That's it. So I do think we have a second session on that in a few weeks, where we discuss the second use case, which is exactly the nurses out on the street or with the patient in their home. Instead of them having to fill out all the forms after their visit in the car, or still while they're sitting at the patient's table, probably filling out the forms, they can simply put the device in the room with the patient and speak with the patient and with the device to say, today's blood pressure is such, the patient can stand up all right, I don't know, had a good sleep, and the AI tool can then automatically not only create summary notes, but we can configure it so it actually pre-fills forms in Oracle Field Services and gets transferred back into a hospital EMR system for that historical patient structured custom data. So super powerful insights to take this to the next level. But we have a detailed session around that in a few weeks, so I don't want to steal the storm.
No worries. So then, the whole point of this is what Anita was saying is the final output, to be able to fast track and generate the necessary documentation. So the ability with a clinician assistant is to follow the attributes of the client, to be able to run client-patient interviews and sessions where all these information are tailored to the type of specialist. We don't generate just one for all. We dive into, say, between a cardiology to a psychiatrist to a palliative care, all the necessary analytics is very tailored to that particular specialist as the second level. Third tier is that for the particular hospital or the clinicians, we can go that third step where we can create specific language and prompts only to their industry requirements. And then the last step of their process is the output. What do we want to do with all this voice transaction document or data is to be able to generate the necessary documents. This is where Anita was talking about, being able to not have to create those form manually, but as you go along the journey with the patient, you talk to the system, and the system, we can introduce all the necessary documentations that's required for that particular hospital or the clinic. So here I've actually added a couple of them where a particular one would be the referral. So the referral letter, After getting a referral from a GP, you run your patient interview, and then having the ability not to have to waste or spend consuming time to create the referral, we can generate instantaneously the referral. But the referral is based on the clinician or the specialist. It's based on the interview with the patient, and it's superseded based on the file notes or the self-file notes of the specialist to be able to generate all these information without having to go backwards and forwards and do the editing. So at the end of the day, it's really hands-free for the specialist. And then, the way we can do is that we can download it, we can print it, so we can export all the documentations back to the field services. We can download the PDF or generate into a Word document with the letterhead of the clinic or hospital. And then other things that we've done is that I've actually just teased a little bit. I've actually asked the model and built the model into give me a care plan for this particular patient. And so what it does is I've built in a very simple model where I try to get the form of the care plan. But this care plan is very interesting because this is where we can connect to the field service hospital clinician to extract and bring down their care plan. So we're not fabricating, we can complement and generate the care plan based on the hospital requirements. Anita, did you want to bring something into this part here? Because I thought it was quite interesting.
I love it, right? So just listening you talk about this again, I'm super excited. So you're spot on, right? So the way it works, I think from the end-to-end process in the typical Oracle world is that, we would use Fusion Service for the care plan management, where let's say a hospital may have 20 different care templates, whether it's a hip replacement or someone has chemotherapy or someone is in palliative care, whatever it is, right? So there's sort of a standard, a hospital standard, which would be used, and then the triaging doctor would take that standard as a guideline and then customize it based on the patient requirements. And I exactly think this is where the AI tool can probably greatly help, because the AI tool can take the historical information, can take the template, and then take all the patient's details and prompt a potentially customized plan for the doctor to review and sign off.
100%, yes. And then the last step I thought I brought into this particular demo is this is where we can actually work and design the workflow based on the business or the hospital requirements. So what I've actually built in is also an evaluation sheet. This is more about, all right, as a clinician or as the nurse, how was your effectiveness around that patient interview? So this one, I actually did a quick checklist around the initial coverage. What sort of questions did we cover? How was our communication? So you can imagine how you can build this as a sort of a checklist to be specific to the clinician, and especially did you double check that you, based on our policies of the particular hospital, this is what we need to make sure that we are adhering to. So we can take all of that conversation or that interview or the client data and then run it against a certain checklist to make sure that, we have that accountability and we have that traceability of, are we on target? Did we miss anything? Or should we be more exploring? And so we can look at building up the effectiveness, the checklist, the communication of what was done, what was great, what was not great, how we can improve, where our strengths are when we talk to our clinician, what did we miss out, and then we can provide some additional coaching insights so that we can help build up the team. And those coaches, gap submissions, can be all brought in from the clinician or the hospital, complementing into our system so that we don't fabricate all this data. We actually adhere to the requirements of the client to generate this to help improve the patient care.
Yeah. So a lot of the specifically hospitals or private hospitals deal with funding and private insurances. So a lot of the triage, while there's a medical triage happening, it's also around, how much funding people may have or what's covered by what insurance levels and levies. So that's also something which I think, I know is a real pain point for some hospitals to work through all those different funding models, and the actual cost calculation based on the recommended care plan and how those two items actually match for a specific patient. Yeah.
So yep. Sorry, Anissa.
Yeah, no, I think that's also something I'm sure which could be potentially covered as part of this as well, just to do this initial checklist.
Yeah, 100%. So that's the essence of the AI clinician, coming back to be able to design a system where we can tailor-made the triage, or if not, we apply against our standard triage by looking at the language of the referral. We can then bring in the different KPIs to standardize the information, to then have that flow into the clinician interview. But what's important is to complement the historical data of that client. So you're not starting from scratch, and you have that full traceability to be able to create your own, I would say, AI assistant for adult questions that can give you information within minutes as opposed to hours, to be able to then personalize and add on to your own file notes, whether you're on the field or out on the patient sessions, to then say, all right, let's build up all the necessary documentation that I would like to have in the system, that I can click within minutes to get my report without having to worry about the time I have to bring into it, and the consistency and the quality and the effectiveness of those particular reports. And that can all be pushed back to Kyte, to the field services, to keep that end-to-end healthcare program with the clients.
Really fascinating. Very, very good. I know we only have a few minutes left. So everyone who's following us online, if you want to ask any questions, please go ahead and put it in our LinkedIn events comments field just below the video you see, and we can address the questions. But in the meantime, Ian, I actually have a couple of really burning questions. One of them is data privacy. So hospitals dealing with patient highly personal and sensitive information. How does the system deal with data privacy? Where's the system hosted? Is the data encrypted? Who has access to it?
Yep. So the data is stored in Sydney. That's on the cloud service, but the entire information is fully encrypted. We don't actually even have access to the data, whether the data is the transcript to the reports. That's fully encrypted based on the customer's own encryption key. And so every time we do a handshake through this particular platform into our system, the customer has to give that private key to be able to encrypt it, but then also transmitting the data back to the field service of Kyte. That is all HL7 compliant. So that's the medical encryption process that we can map into, so it's fully compliant to the healthcare system.
Excellent. That's great. And with that, you almost answered my next question as well. Hospitals specifically deal with their EMR systems, which is sort of the central record of truth for all patient medical information, or patient 360. So if we then pull out maybe some data from an EMR system into that, plus referral data, plus the doctor's notes, there also needs to be some element of pushing data back into hospital native patient 360, which could also happen with the same integration methodology, I'm assuming, yeah?
Yes, 100%. And in terms of, data storage, we set up so the system either has the ability to store it or destroy it. So the moment the information gets back to the EMR systems or to the Kyte systems, we can automatically destroy all our knowledge of that data.
Perfect. Absolutely amazing. I do think we're actually out of time. Any final words from yourself, Ian? No, the 30 minutes always goes so quick.
No. That was exciting.
On the essential.
I was exciting. I can go more, but I think we best stop because of timing.
No, that's great. So if anyone wants to see more here from the audience, and people may stumble across this video after it's been recorded, please get in touch. We're based in Melbourne. We operate across Australia, but that doesn't stop us from operating overseas as well. So please do get in touch if you want to see more about the Kyte Hospital Home solution, or Ian's AI-powered patient triage system, which perfectly plugs into the end-to-end process. So with that, I want to thank our audience. I want to thank Ian for the really interesting demo, and I'll see the audience again next Wednesday at 12 o'clock for the next hospital in the home topic. Thank you very much and have a great Wednesday.